Well, thank you so much for having me today. My name is Eric Kim. I'm the co-founder and managing partner of 굿워터캐피털. We're a global venture capital firm. We are investing in over 28 countries today. Our last fund that we raised was $1 billion in 2021. Our gross assets today are over $5 billion. We're very, very fortunate to have invested quite heavily in South Korea as well. We have invested in companies, for example, like Kakao and Coupang in the early stages, even prior to starting Goodwater. And in Goodwater itself, we've also invested in companies such as Toss and 당근마켓 or Carrot, also Class 101 and Mathpresso, Spoon Radio, Retrika, and Dongne, and a number of others. Our mission is to empower exceptional entrepreneurs everywhere to change the world for good. So we have a hopefully very positive influence on the broader ecosystem, and we think consumer technology is the most powerful force in the world because it can change people's lives for the better. When we look at a startup, the entrepreneur is very, very important, and the founding team, to make sure that they have both the capability as well as, more importantly, the will and the grit to create a big company over time. In addition to that, though, what we really pay attention to is the end consumer demand. Are these products and services really solving a consumer pain point that exists in the world today? And is there true consumer love and passion for the product? The way we measure that often is to ensure that most of the customer acquisition or their new consumers aren't actually found through paid acquisition. And more, what we focus on is organic acquisition of customers to make sure that customers that are coming in really are coming because there's a true pain point and not because they're marketed to. And finally, I think what we really love to look at is retention. And so that's one of the most important metrics that we look at when we're looking at companies. And so it's quite rare for a company to have a great founding team, to have true customer demand and solve a true customer pain point, grow really fast, and retain high customers at a very high rate. But if they do all those things, we're quite interested in investing. In the US and globally, certainly Web3 and crypto is a hot topic, and there's a lot of investment going towards that area. We have been looking at Web3 and crypto quite closely as well and have made a number of investments. We think the growth is quite remarkable. At the same time, the size of the Web3 market it's quite nascent, and it still has a lot of room to grow. And in terms of the retention characteristics, I think it's still pretty early days. However, we're quite optimistic about this market in the long term. I think the other really interesting trend is that you're seeing more institutionalized industries like healthcare and financial services and education really start to be disrupted by the mobile internet and consumer internet companies. I think these trends will not stop. I think they're going to continue to accelerate in the future. In addition, I think there's two other categories that we find really, really interesting. Quick commerce. So we're investors in a company called Getir, Getir, in Turkey. Also, PropTech is starting to gain a lot of traction as well. And the reason that these kinds of markets are really starting to get traction is that the infrastructure for both physical and digital transactions to happen are really getting put in place. And so you can literally start to buy a home on your phone. That's possible now. And so those are some of the key trends that are continuing to happen in the Web 2 world. And as I mentioned earlier, the pure digital Web 3 world is certainly something we're paying a lot of attention to as well. It has grown quite a bit. I remember actually coming out to South Korea in 2002 and working with a startup back in 2002 in Seoul, South Korea. And compared to then and where we are today, 20 years later, the market has really changed, and it's embraced a lot of innovation. You have amazing entrepreneurs. I was early investors in both Kakao and Coupang back in 2010 and 2011. Now, a lot has changed even since then. And more recently with companies like Toss and 당근마켓, kind of the next generation of unicorn companies, it continues to accelerate. And that's the wonderful thing about a startup ecosystem. And once you get the flywheel going, you have a few successful case studies of a Kakao or a Coupang, then more investors come in. And also, like in the case of 당근마켓, those founders came out of Kakao. So from great startups founders emerge, and also capital follows. And so those are the key ingredients to creating a great startup ecosystem. For example, at Toss, the founder SG Lee is really amazing. He has an amazing story, first as a dentist and then realizing his dream to be an entrepreneur and wanting to really change the financial ecosystem for good. We find the best entrepreneurs are solving their own pain points. They're solving a real consumer need that they've experienced themselves, and they're passionate about it. And that passion is very hard to fake. When we are looking at entrepreneurs at the early stage, we're looking for that passion, for that grit. We spend a lot of our time researching that to understand what's the consumer demand. And then we ask a fundamental question about growth. The fundamental question we ask is, as these services get bigger, do the products and services get better for the consumer? But that's something we certainly looked at the early stages for Kakao, for Coupang, for Toss, also for 당근마켓 as well, that are these services getting better as they get bigger? And certainly our answer is yes for those companies. And we're often wrong as well, but we learn from those mistakes and we try to do better the next time. I do think a lot of the best entrepreneurs have some common characteristics, including an amazing ability to have persistence and resilience. They're okay with failure because they learn from it and they don't get discouraged by it. At the same time, I think that they are very intellectually honest. They don't try to oversell. They understand what their capabilities truly are at any given moment and what they need to change truly to get better. So intellectual honesty is really, really important. And what I mean by that is that they don't try to make everything sound good. Optimism is good, it's very important, as well as pragmatism as well. In addition to those characteristics though, I would say that we are constantly looking for entrepreneurs who are changing the mold. There is no set DNA. It's changing over time because the world is changing. We need more diverse entrepreneurs. We need entrepreneurs with different types of perspectives and backgrounds as well, because those are going to be the most creative types that are going to find new solutions to consumer problems as well. The goal for Korean startups is not necessarily to go global. Not every company can go global or actually should go global. And the Korean market itself is huge. You can create a multi-decacorn, multi-$10 billion company in Korea itself. Korean startups may look outside of Korea for success. However, it's really important to find success in the home market as well. The key question is, do you have a distinct advantage by going into another market? I think Sunbird is a great example. They've truly built a global operation from day one almost for their product. And so it takes a lot of commitment to go global itself. I think something that Korean startups have to think about very carefully before going to go global. 당근마켓 or Carrot, recently the co-CEO is spending a lot of time in Canada because that's an important market to go to North America. They spent the time in South Korea to create a huge company and a great service in Seoul and more broadly in South Korea, and then went global as well. And I think 당근마켓 is doing it the right way by really first being dominant in South Korea and then going outside as well. Yeah, I think that there is a little bit depends on timing. When is the right time to reach out? And when is the right time to spend your energy on reaching out to global investors? You know, fundraising is something that is very, very hard to do while you're building a company. So when you're an early stage entrepreneur, it probably doesn't make a lot of sense. When you get to a little bit more mature stage, focus on growth and focus on growth and focus on growth. And I think the right investors will come to you. So I don't think there's like a set formula, but I think that at the very early stages, it doesn't make a lot of sense to spend too much time with foreign investors. I'm excited to partner with Korean entrepreneurs that really want to be a change agent, to really be a force of good in this world, and to use the consumer internet for positive things. And so I am just encouraging any entrepreneur out there in South Korea that really wants to have a positive impact on consumer lives to really go for it and to be resilient, and hopefully at some point good water can be helpful to them as well.